Hello, everybody, and welcome. This is a new project that I'm wanting to try out myself, and it's called Thanks, Nobody Asked. So, for those of you who have been following me for a little while, you probably know that I've had like a lot of podcasts. I've done a lot of like projects and stuff in the past that never really kind of like panned out. And I never want to like say like one reason or another why it never worked out, because there was obviously I obviously have a lot of things that are going on in my life. I have my kids. I have my full time job and everything that I do. I mean, it's another reason that I'm not always like streaming. But I finally due in part to like what I've seen like other content creators and stuff like doing. Obviously, ones that are like way bigger than me and have more like time and effort to put into stuff like this. I was a little inspired because this is always something that I've wanted to do, and I've tried coming back to it like multiple times. I think this would probably be like the fifth attempt that I've ever had at doing a podcast. And I kind of thought, like, what if I just tried and do things on my own? What if I wanted to, like, give things my own little flair and, really try and, like, make something that I can do independently without having to worry about anybody else, without having to, like, schedule with, like, multiple people and everything, with the exception of if I ever try and have guests on. You know what I mean? I have a few people that I've been talking to and everything that I wanted to bring on and kind of talk about like various topics and everything. And I think this would be like a good way for me to just kind of like get my opinions out and get my like ramblings, because I have a lot. I can talk. If you meet anybody that ever has met me, I can talk. There's a lot of things that I like, enjoy talking about, and I can do a lot of it. So this was just kind of a project that I wanted to try, and I don't know how like well I'm going to stick with it, but this is going to be one of my my New Year resolutions. Kind of like the title says, New Year, new podcast. Play on New Year, new me, because it's not really like a new me. I'm not doing anything super different than what I've like done in the past, but I am trying to be more consistent with it. And I think this will be like a good opportunity for me to kind of like go on, talk about things, and really just kind of just put something out there into the world that I can probably say that I'm proud of. I don't know how long for the year I'm gonna go. My goal is I want to do at least 30 episodes, which it's not a lot because it's not exactly like once a week, but I would at least like to try and like do more than like, half of the year. So I'd like the 52 weeks in the month. Obviously, I can't say that I can be super committed or have like the topics and everything to do it every week, but I want to be able to say that I was able to get through the year and at least do like most of it, or like most of like what I'm able to do. That being said and everything, there's been so much that's been going on in like the last 2 months, and like the time that I've been trying to get this all set up. I made the logo that you can see above me, with some help from some friends and input and stuff. um, there's been so much that's been happening that I've been like wanting to talk about, and I just this is finally kind of my opportunity. But a lot of the some of the things that have kind of like blown over, are not really worth talking about anymore, because in 2 months a lot can happen. Um, but like definitely a couple of things that have been like super relevant, like in the last really the few days. It wouldn't be episode 1 of a John Barry podcast if I didn't take a ton of time to dunk on Logan Paul for doing some absolutely outlandish, stupid shit. But yeah, he's caught up in a crypto scam, which who saw that coming? He's a man running a podcast. So I mean, who would have seen that coming? But yeah, he's super into this thing called like crypto zoo and everything. And I mean, like at the end of the day, like based on everything that I've been hearing about it, everything that I've been like watching on it, obviously feel free to like read up on it and form your own opinions and everything. These are just mine. It just feels like this is a big mess, just completely surrounded by the fact that Logan Paul just wants to make more money. And that's like so weird to me, right? Like there's so many people in the world that they have like this abundance of cash, like they have this like massive influx of money, and they just want more. And I'm like, why? Like why? Like why? How? What drives somebody to be like so fucked up in the head that they hit like $1 million and they're like, I want 2 million, or they hit like $50 million and they're like, I want it to be like a billion. Like, how do you get to that point? Because like, what do you even do spend it on? Like, what can Logan Paul not buy that he needs more money to buy it? You know what I mean? Like, it's just so weird. Like, in fact, there was a text message that he had with somebody known as Jake the Crypto King or whatever the fuck it was called, where he was like, "Oh, we made $40 million out of nowhere," and Logan Paul basically just said like, "I want it to be 120 million." So he came up with this thing called Crypto Zoo, and it was supposed to be like you spent money on a crypto known as like Zoo token, and you used it to buy an NFT, which is pretty common. Lately, like NFTs been popping up like left and right. Obviously, it's all just like, if I hate saying it this way, but if you really want to go and like buy an NFT or whatever, fucking go for it, I guess. But just know, like, most of the time, like these NFTs and these like things that you're buying like into like are just flat out they're scams. Like, you're literally just buying. It's almost the equivalent of like buying an art piece, to hang up on your wall. But with the exception of like it's literally just code. Like this, it's not like, and a lot of times they're not even like pre-drawn. You're usually like AI that you're just kind of like paying for and not really necessarily owning. Like, it's really weird that like some people are like so obsessed with like the NFT trend. And even like Square Enix is getting into it, and this is like let's talk about Square Enix for a second, like on the topic of NFTs, because like, okay, Square NFT, they're going about it in like a really weird way, where they are you basically like you start out and you buy like a figurine, like a Cloud from Final Fantasy VII. You buy it like a Cloud figurine and everything, which is cool. You're getting a physical product, like that again, going back to what like NFTs are and like how they relate to buying anything else. Like, this way you're getting like a physical product, but then like that physical product has like a code or something, like a QR code or something of the sort that like leads to an like NFT. Multiple blockchain gaming events held overseas recently produced a more active discussion than ever before about what makes the games exciting and what the user community looks like. The market was driven more by speculative investors than by gamers through 2021. In other words, the content that was at the forefront was created based on the premise that blockchain and NFTs could result in monetization. However, in the wake of the aforementioned turbulence in the cryptocurrency industry, because cryptocurrency is super unstable, like, I mean, it's investing in crypto is kind of like investing in the stock market. Like, you can never really, unless you're like super invested in it, never really kind of know where it's going. And even then, like, there's no guarantee. Like, you don't know that what you're buying into is going to accumulate more. And there's so many like crypto in the past that have like shown that, like Bitcoin. Like, even though it still costs a lot of money and is still like worth a lot of money, it has been like on a really bad downward decline for a good while. And like, not a lot, it was kind of weird because like not a lot of people thought it was going to do that. People thought that like Bitcoin was the future, and like, Bitcoin was going to be like an alternative to like actual physical cash, and something to like use in the future. And we're really kind of like seeing the like, I guess when you get like, when your hubris gets too high, you know what I mean? Like, you like when you start thinking you're like bigger than like anything else in the world, and then all of a sudden it just comes crashing down. Again, Bitcoin is still very expensive. It's still like, if somebody came up to you and offered you like $100 or like, one Bitcoin, obviously the Bitcoin is worth more, but who's to say that that's going to be how it is like in the future? Who's to say that Bitcoin is something that just sticks around forever? You know what I mean? Like, one day, like, Bitcoin could literally just disappear off the internet. Like, it's literally just a combination of ones and zeros. There's no physicality to crypto coin, and that's like the really scary part, is there's nothing you can like do to like hold on to it forever. Like, if it just decides that it's going to go away, that it's gone. Like all that money you spent, it is gone. It's kind of like buying a digital video game, like PT, for example. You know, a lot of people loved PT. It was a really good demo of a game. You can't download it anymore, and if you deleted it before it was, or after it was taken off of the store, you can't get it anymore. I mean, I'm sure there are like downloads and stuff that you can do online to get it back, but like as far as like in the physical media, like you can't buy a physical copy of it. You can't go on to like the PlayStation store and buy it. Like it is just gone forever. It was a digital product and it has been removed, and there with seemingly no way to get it back. So we kind of see a lot of the same thing with like cryptocurrency. It's not 100% reliable. And again, if you're gonna like go for it and everything, that's just kind of one of those things that you do have to be mindful of going forward. You do have to like think about, you know, what if this like ends up crashing and I like lose my money. If you're okay with losing the money and like taking that risk and everything, that's great. Do it. But that's just always something you need to keep in mind. There is now a trend to view blockchain technology as a mere means to an end, to discuss what needs to happen to archive the end of delivering new experiences and excitement to customers. Yeah, like it, you know, they're doing this to kind of like build hype. They want to build like a lot of thought behind it, and they want to get people excited for like the future of video games and stuff. And they think this is one way to do it. Do I think it's the way to do it? No, absolutely not. This is, in my humble opinion, probably just a horrible idea. And almost any company that has decided to go the NFT route is kind of, I mean, it's not like the industry itself isn't dying, but like the ideas of NFTs are kind of dying. And it's weird to see that Square Enix, after all the like commercial failures that all the other companies have had, is still deciding to go this route. And then there's a funny little visual here. It says NFTs, more like no fucking thanks. And like Aerith with the steel chair, but you know. So yeah, you going back to Logan Paul and everything, you were essentially just buying like this NFT of an animal, and it was supposed to be like this game where like you buy this egg and it hatches into an NFT of an animal, and then you can take like, you know, two animals and breed them and make like a hybrid animal and then sell it back for more coin. And it was a way to kind of like, okay, well, if you get like two rare like animals, which are just stock images of just regular animals, like a duck and a dog, and you know, you could turn it into like a duck dog or whatever the fuck it was called. If that was like really rare, then you could like sell it back for more money than the initial egg was worth, and you could essentially make money that way. But what CoffeeZilla, a YouTuber who's been like on the up and up and everything, and who has been showing off a lot of like crypto scams, specifically like ones run by, you know, popular streamers and podcasters and stuff like that. He basically did a docuseries where he's like, hey, this thing was announced and like released about like a year ago, like where is it, what happened with it, like, you know, how is it doing now? And it was a 3-part series on YouTube, which I would recommend anybody go and watch. It's very well written, it's very like well informed, and obviously you're gonna get a lot more information than I'm able to give you in like this 45-minute to an hour whatever I decided to do show. And you'll get like a lot more facts and stuff, than because, you know, obviously every decision that you want to make, you should be informed about like everything, instead of just listening to like one person or like 2 or 3 people and then forming your decision on that. Like I would recommend going and watching the original video and then just kind of taking everything you know about it and like going with it. But yeah, like it was promised. It was supposed to be this really big thing that, you know, he's really excited for. And I mean, personally, he has the money to do stuff like this. Like he has the money to burn, where like if he wanted to like make a game that give people the potential to like earn money instead of just putting money into it and getting nothing back, like having it all be digital. Which again, it's NFTs, but there's neither here nor there, because you could sell it back, whatever the like idea was supposed to be. Like the idea is that like Logan Paul here has the money to basically pay out like to anybody who could do that. And honestly, like since, God, what was it, like 6 years ago or like 5 years ago or whatever, when the Japanese suicide forest incident happened, it really seemed like he was kind of like doing better. Like the impulsive, his new podcast and everything. It's not bad. Like I've watched a few episodes of it, and he seems like he's doing a lot better, and he's trying to keep like a clean slate and everything. But then this drops, and it really kind of sucks to see because like a lot of people were like getting more faith in Logan Paul. I don't know what Jake Paul is doing, honestly. I don't keep up with both of them that often. I think Jake Paul is more into like the boxing thing these days, but like Logan Paul just seemed like he was taking an effort to be better. And what we're seeing just kind of initially right here is that he's not doing better. In fact, he's just as greedy as ever. And he, is trying to kind of, I guess, like just squeeze money out of the people who are just like getting this newfound trust in him, which is really sad to see. Anytime, it's always shitty whenever like a like celebrity or like, whatever you decide you want to like label Logan Paul as, is just like a bad person, because we look up to some of these people, and it like leaves a bad taste in your mouth when like somebody that you once thought was like, a good or decent person, is just a complete shithead. I like, and take it from me, I'm a part of the like punk pop and like metalcore like community, and like I'm a fan of all those and all those types of music and everything. And there's like a really big issue with, I don't want to say the word, there's a big problem in like that community specifically with like adults who are attracted to like teenagers, and it's really, really disgusting. And so like it's one of those things, like whenever you look up to like a band like that or like a celebrity like this, and you just find out that they are involved in like some like horrible things. Obviously I'm not trying to compare the two, they're both obviously bad. One is way worse than the other, but it's just, in any case, when somebody you look up to turns out to be a bad person, it's always a really sad feeling. Obviously, over time and everything, you can kind of like come to terms with it and, just kind of stop supporting them in that way. But it just sucks to see. And I, for one, really thought Logan Paul was making an effort to do better. And it doesn't seem like that's the case. Especially considering the way that he's handling this. Because CoffeeZilla, the original person who made the 3-part docuseries, he was very well thought out in like everything that he was like posting. He even did like interviews with people who had like bought into it and like felt like that they were scammed. And he spoke to like 5 or 6 different people. He spoke to like some of the people that ended up like working on the project, or like supposedly working on the project, because there's not been any game that we've seen yet or that has been released to the public. And Logan Paul just kind of responds with an entire video of like ad hominem, where he's literally just attacking CoffeeZilla and saying like, oh well, you're not even like an investigative journalist or anything like that. You're just a gossip channel, which is like, I don't know how you can watch everything that he did and just say that like that's just gossip. Like he literally came with like facts and sources and stuff like that, and like real life testimonials. And you are literally just going to boil it down to, like, you're taking everything out of proportion. And, like, even doing certain things with, like, there's one part, I don't know if I should play, like, the actual video, or I might just play the audio. But CoffeeZilla interviewed one person.
CoffeeZilla, I watched your 3-part series.
So CoffeeZilla interviewed, or, like, was talking about, like, one person who was one of the lead developers for the project. And he turned out to be like a really big, just like a scammer. He was a felon who, he took some of Logan Paul. I'm going to confuse them all the time. I am so sorry if any of y'all are unfortunately a Logan Paul or a Jake Paul fan. But anyways, he took like a portion of Logan Paul's money that he was going to be using to fund creating the so-called game, and just like ran away to like another country or something like that. And Logan Paul here was like, oh, why didn't you include his full name, so you could like point out that he was like a felon and this, that, and the other. And it's like, that is probably one of the worst cell phones I have ever seen, because you are literally just saying like, why did you protect the identity of a felon? Which, I mean, that's I'm 50-50 on this. I've worked in like restaurants and stuff like that, because you'll see this a lot in restaurants. Let's be honest. Also, wouldn't be a John Barry episode podcast if I didn't talk about the restaurant industry. I've worked in like restaurants and stuff where like a lot of the people in the kitchen have criminal records. Just because somebody is a felon, that doesn't mean that they don't deserve like a second shot, or like, a job trying to like do something and make something of themselves. But when they continuously have shown that they are, in the business of like fraud, the same way that, like a lot of places won't hire you if you're like, convicted of stealing all the time. That might be a deal breaker. It kind of begs the question of like, not why did CoffeeZilla protect this guy's identity, but more so, why did Logan Paul hire him in the first place? Like, it's wild. It's an interesting thing to like bring up, and honestly, again, it's kind of a self-own on Logan's part, because he's basically just saying, yeah, I hired a felon who's known for scamming people, and he scammed me. Like, no shit, Sherlock. Like,
Series called Investigate. Coffee, you took a shot at your judgment and you've made very real errors with very real repercussions. Coffee, you took a shot at my reputation. So in this video today, I'm going to be defending myself with facts, something that you have gotten in the habit of twisting as you continue to morph from an investigator to a gossip channel. You see, CoffeeZilla tried to work with law enforcement in the past, but his work was described as not anchored to truth and often speculative. He is
so like that's one example of like how he's just blatantly just being like, oh, you don't like, you just talk out of your ass, basically, is what he's saying. Like, you're talking out of your ass and you're not even like giving like real facts and everything. When at the end of the day, I feel like he did a really good job of like pointing all that out now. But he obviously doesn't think so. And I don't really think he did anything in this video to kind of like disprove anything that he was talking about previously. And then this is the part where he like goes on to talk about like the like convicted felon that, again, Logan Paul hired, knowing that he was like guilty of fraud.
Coffee, you interviewed the developer who stole the game code, fled to Switzerland, and held it hostage for $1 million. Well, his name is Zach Kelling. Surely, as the internet detective that you proclaim to be, you would know that he spent time in prison for multiple felonies, one for aggravated robbery, armed robbery at a liquor store, and the other for, surprise, obstructing the legal process. I can see why you kept him anonymous.
Again, why hire this man? Why? Like, that doesn't bring up, like, it doesn't like answer any questions that like we have for him. If anything, it just raises more. Like, he's just, it's so wild to me that he's trying to do this like whole thing as like a like reason to be like, hey, what I'm doing isn't a scam, and then he doesn't do anything to really like give us any faith in what he's doing. It literally, it's so wild to me that he spent all this time, and at the end of it, he also talks about like suing CoffeeZilla, which in a way I think might be more of just a like, hey, let's just burn CoffeeZilla's resources, because obviously Logan Paul is a lot richer, he's a lot bigger of a content creator, he has the money to blow on just frivolous bullshit like this. Like, he probably knows that he's not going to win this lawsuit. Let's be real. Like, anybody who has like 2 brain cells can look at this entire situation and be like, why is Logan Paul trying to sue him? Like, it doesn't make sense to me. And like, yeah, why? And then he goes another step further and he invites CoffeeZilla on to Impulsive, his podcast. And CoffeeZilla here literally says, this is hardly important with all the insane lies on Logan Paul's new video, but did he really say he was going to sue me and also say he'd love to host me on Impulsive? LMAO, it's a trap. Yeah, that's like a, like, he's gonna like walk into the set and they're just gonna hand him like the like legal papers, like, okay, we'll see you in court, asshole. And probably also lure him into like doing a lot of his like legal proceedings and stuff in California or wherever it is that Logan Paul is like based out of, where CoffeeZilla might actually have a case to like run the court here in Texas, because I think he's based out of like Houston or something like that. Don't quote me on that. I'm not entirely sure. I just know that he is in Texas. And one very important thing to like note, I don't know exactly what California's laws are on recording private conversations, but I do know a little bit about like the laws pertaining to recording legal conversation or recording private conversations in the state of Texas. And basically, the law in Texas is that if at least one party consents to that conversation being recorded, then it's fair game. Like it's allowed to. And now that might sound like kind of a weird way to word it. And a lot of people might think like, oh, so if it's like if it's just a two-way conversation, you just have to have the other person's consent and you're good. No, it's literally any one person that is involved in the conversation. If they consent to the call being recorded, it is completely legal to do so. That means if you are calling somebody and you are consenting to having that conversation recorded, it is fair game. You can have that conversation recorded as like the person consenting. You don't need to get the other person's consent in the matter. So any conversation that had, at least from how I understand the law in Texas goes, he has every right to have that conversation recorded. Now, if they're having the legal, conversation and everything in California, and they're going off of the perspective of the person who received the call being in California, then they might have to go by whatever rules California goes by, which off the top of my head, I wouldn't know. I want to assume, the way that a lot of people have been looking into it, that it's not necessarily the most legal thing to do. So that's definitely one thing to kind of like consider as to why like CoffeeZilla hasn't like gone on the podcast as of yet. They did have like another episode since then. I think it was posted yesterday, and Logan Paul said a couple of I'll say interesting things for sure.
He's probably gonna put people who have lost here on a pillar and highlight them. That's what I would do if I were him. I'd milk the shit out of this, and like I said, he's probably going to. He's good. He's very good. But part 6 is the more he says, and the more he continues to spread this misinformation that this was any sort of con or scam, the more I have for the lawsuit that I am filing. He's probably gonna.
So he's basically just saying that like he's probably going to use the people that he interviewed, and like milk the situation. He's not milking it. He's bringing like people on who were scammed by your product to like talk, like give their experience on like how they feel like the project was going. And obviously if they bought like the eggs and everything, and you promised that there was going to be a game out of it that they could play once they were able to buy the eggs, and there's no game to play, then they have the right to talk about that. They have the right to be like, yeah, I don't know like what happened. He said this was gonna happen once I did this, and I can't do that thing that he said was going to happen. It's so wild to me that he's going this length to just like downplay the entire situation, and like make CoffeeZilla kind of like look like the bad guy out of it too. Because again, I think all this information seemed to be like responsive and well researched. And then there's this other part that this part is just funny to me.
Why did you block him on Twitter?
It's like a little gnat. It's like a little fucking annoying gnat, and it bothers me. He won. He got to me, bro. He's the most formidable opponent I've had. I'm not kidding. The guy's good.
Why did you?
He literally just says he's a little gnat, and he's the most formidable opponent I've ever had. Two things that probably shouldn't be in the same sentence, or like you shouldn't be if you're gonna call somebody like a gnat, don't say that they're the most formidable opponent that you've ever had, because that just makes you look weak, man. Like I'm not like the one to talk about like the idea of like just being like super like strong or like whatever, by probably any means of the sentence. But like if you're literally gonna call somebody a gnat, you cannot say that they're the most formidable opponent you've ever had. You just can't do that, man. That just makes you look so incredibly fragile. Yeah, and it's honest. Like at the end of the day, like that part probably, I don't know if it's funny or if it's sad. And it also goes to like show you that he genuinely is probably scared of like what CoffeeZilla presented, even though he's trying to downplay it as just being like bad faith arguments. So I mean, at the end of the day, like Logan Paul, I hope he like rectifies this or like does something about it, or if he like actually does end up taking CoffeeZilla to court, I hope he falls flat on his face with the whole thing. I mean, because like Jesus Christ, it's one thing to promise your audience something, it's another thing to like take money from them while doing it. You know what I mean? Like if this whole thing, if he said he was gonna like come out with like a game or whatever, and people like if he was gonna say he was like coming out with a game, and like there was never a game to be played, and people like weren't spending money on it, this wouldn't be it like as big of an issue as it is. But he literally promised people a product, had people pay into that product, and then did not deliver any kind of outcome without any kind of, not even like an update until like all this came out. Like he hasn't talked about this in months, maybe even like a year since like it almost like first released. So it like really looks bad on him in like multiple ways, as to like how it should never have gotten to this point. Like if you're going to make a promise on something, you need to just deliver on it. And he did put out like a little visual that says that CryptoZoo is going to be coming in 2023 or 2024 at the end of his video. So I mean, honestly, if it happens, it happens. Great. He can at least like try and repair like a little bit of the damage. But I think like a lot of people's faith in Logan Paul becoming better has ultimately just been shattered. I know for me, it has. Because in no way does this seem like he legitimately meant to keep this product out. Because even like in video games, when somebody has like a product that they know they can't deliver on like immediately, they delay it. And you know what happens when they delay it? They don't just be quiet about it. They post about it. They like public about it, and they're like, hey, we know a lot of people are really excited for this. And while we appreciate all the outpouring of love and everything, we have to delay it until, and then they give their date. That's literally all that you really have to say. Just be like, hey, I'm really sorry. I'm dealing with like a lot of BS with a lot of the people that I thought I could trust in creating this game for y'all, and it hasn't gotten to the point that I want it to be. And I just wanted to put out a public statement saying that we are working on it. There will be something to show for it in the future, but we just need more time. And literally, if he had just done that, there never would have been anything that CoffeeZilla ever would have had to report on. This whole video would never have happened. This whole lawsuit would never have happened. And Logan Paul wouldn't have to be apologizing so much. He would have nothing to apologize for. If you're upfront and you're honest with people, and you're communicating with the people who are looking forward to the projects that you're putting out, then you have nothing to worry about. You are like on a clean slate. But he didn't do that. He didn't give that time or that like effort in communication to talk about like what was going on behind the scenes. He just kept it hidden, presumably so that people would just forget about it. And now that CoffeeZilla brought it up, people are being reminded of it, and more people are being exposed to the bullshit that he's doing. So it just became worse, and it ended up blowing up in his face, and I hope it continues to blow up, because you don't do that to people. But yeah, anyways, that's kind of like how that whole situation is going on. Those are my thoughts on it. Ultimately, at the end of the day, I would recommend going and watching the CoffeeZilla video, and then going and watching Logan Paul's video to kind of get like all the context and everything. It's definitely worth the watch. I will say. I spent a lot of time watching it. I've also watched like Charlie, Moist Critical, and Ludwig, and like other like content creators and stuff who have like been reporting on and talking about it. So getting like multiple angles and everything is definitely the best way to go in situations like this. Another thing that has been like super crazy that has been going on has been the incident between the Buffalo Bills and the Cincinnati Bengals. For those of you who aren't like big sports fans like I am, so just for a little like context, and any of y'all that have like seen me stream, you'll know that I play MLB The Show. Baseball is my favorite sport of all time, and I also love watching football. Football is very like entertaining. I love watching it, and it's great for me. But one thing that has always been on my mind that I've always like seen and stuff, especially with my uncle being an athletic trainer, who sees these kind of things like all the time, is player health. Player health is a major, really big, important thing that I think the Major League Baseball does really well. And I know there's a lot of memes, that I'll make on like, when it comes to like stuff like soccer. I'm not the biggest soccer fan, and whenever I see somebody like get lightly like tapped on the shoulder and they like grab their leg in like pain, that's obviously going like a step too far. But I think that Major League Baseball does really good at the end of the day of like protecting their players' health, because they'll see stuff like, oh, a groin strain, and like keep them out of games for like a week. And while that might seem like an over exaggeration or like like crazy, at the end of the day it is for the players. And make sure that if like whatever injury they have or that they're doing, it doesn't like exasperate further on later on and become something way more serious. Now there's also something to be said with the rate of like Tommy John surgery and stuff like that for like pitchers in the recent years, because there's more of like a focus on like velocity and like throwing the ball as fast as possible. But I think for the most part, like when it comes to injuries and stuff like that, the Major League Baseball Association does a lot of good with keeping players' safety and health at like kind of the forefront, and kind of putting their performance in the games and stuff on the back burner. It's not always perfect, but I think they've gotten a lot better over the recent years. That being said, I think the NFL is way behind on this, and we saw like a lot of it at the beginning of the year with a player. I'm not gonna try to do his last name, but his name is Tua. He is the quarterback for the Miami Dolphins, and he had, I think it was like 2 or 3 concussions in like 2 back-to-back games, and one point like where it looked like he was almost like seizing up on the field. Like it was not a good look and everything. He was like taking off, and they kept him out of the game for a little while, but it was really bad because he suffered a concussion, and they still put him back out there multiple times to continually suffer more concussions, which is dangerous. That can cause so many like long-term health issues. There were a lot of doctors and stuff talking to him personally who were telling him like, this is not worth it, retire, like this is not good for you. And he's still playing. I think the Miami Dolphins have done a better job moving forward of like keeping his health in mind, which is always good. But what I'm really getting down to is the Buffalo Bills versus the Cincinnati Bengals game. It was very sad. During one of the plays was only the first quarter of the game, which is only like within the first like literally the first like 25% of the game. I don't even think they were halfway through the quarter yet. The Buffalo Bills were on defense, and a player known as Damar Hamlin, he went in to make a tackle to stop the Bengals from like advancing and everything. He made a pretty, it almost seemed like a pretty routine play, like something you would see like over and over again. But the receiver, T. Higgins, again, I just want to preface this. T. Higgins is in no way to blame for what happened that night. T. Higgins should also like receive a like large outpouring of like support and everything, because he didn't mean for this to happen. It was just a freak accident that happened. But T. Higgins ended up hitting Damar Hamlin in the chest with his helmet, which, as you can imagine, probably hurts a lot. And when Damar Hamlin got up and everything, he took 2 steps and then collapsed. From what it seems like happened, it seems like he suffered cardiac arrest or a heart attack, and from that, they performed CPR on him for about anywhere from like 8 to 10 minutes until he was like rushed to the hospital. Now, obviously, that was a very scary moment that happened. I remember seeing like a lot of like the videos on Twitter and stuff like as it was happening. I was at work while it happened, so I didn't necessarily see the game itself, but it was scary. You know, I did see a clip of the hit, and it's really like chilling, kind of seeing how like quickly he got up, but then immediately just collapsed to the ground, and like the amount of people like in the stands, his teammates, even players on like the opposite team and everything, just showing like the genuine concern and like how upset they were and everything. It was a really scary moment. And you know, some now, before I get any further into it, there have been like updates constantly on his progress, and it does seem that he is I don't remember if it said he was like breathing on his own. He has a breathing tube, and he is communicating via writing. So he is awake and he is conscious. And one of the first things that he asked was who won the game. Ultimately, the game did not continue. The NFL actually tried getting the players to take like a 5-minute warm up and then get right back out there. And the players as well as the coaches, rightly so, decided no, we're not doing that. Like, and they left the field. The game ended right there. They didn't finish it, and the NFL has finally made the decision to, not like have the game play out anymore. They're basically just saying like we're not going to have this like game repeat, which I personally think is the right decision. I think that was a good call on the NFL's part, especially to rectify the absolute bullshit of them trying to get it to happen immediately after the incident. Especially considering looking at like the players and how distraught they were about the situation happening right in front of them. You can't expect people, especially after just like 5 minutes after the player is gone, to just continue to like go on. That's sociopathic. Like it almost not to get like to bring too much of my like personal into this, but like watching something like that is traumatizing. Like I still to this day remember seeing like that happening to my mom. Obviously completely different situation, but my mom suffered cardiac arrest. They rushed her to a hospital. They were performing CPR on her. I saw them performing CPR on her, and it might have been like a little worse in my case because she recently had heart surgery, so like the wound was opening up. There was a lot of blood, and then CPR is a extensive process. Like you can literally break ribs if you're doing CPR properly. Like it's more than likely that man like suffered like broken ribs and everything while they were trying to keep him alive, and that is something. They had to revive him. They had to bring him back to life. So it was definitely really chilling to kind of seeing all that happen, and expecting players to just go back about their day and continue is just incredibly fucked up. There unfortunately does seem to be some ramifications for like depending on what they decide to do with this game. Some people have been deciding, that the game should end at a tie. Others, honestly, like the one that makes the most sense is like ending the game in a do not finish, but like we're really close to the playoffs and everything, and it like kind of leaves the idea of like, well, how are the playoffs going to play out if we have like a do not finish and these two teams only have 16 games instead of 17? Obviously I don't know the answers to all these questions, but like that's not what's important here. And the crazy thing is, like, you still go on social media and you see some people who are griping about like, oh well, if they ended in a tie, then that means then the Bills don't get like this seed in the playoffs. Who fucking cares? You know what I mean? Like it's one of those things that just kind of shows like how people's like brains are processed. Like this man is fighting for his life in the hospital right now, and while it does seem like he's for the most part going to recover, and I say for the most part because we never know how his condition and everything is going to play out, it's at the very least like important to recognize that like a game does not matter. This one game does not matter. If the Bills don't get like the first seed in the playoffs, that does not matter. like making sure that this man is alive and, you know, is able to see his family, another group of people who were at the game watching him. Like, can you imagine being a like mother or a father watching your child be like revived on the football field? It's not a good feeling. And I think a lot of people should kind of like put themselves into like the shoes of people who would normally be affected by this. Now, I will say, for like athletes and everything, it would suck if, you know, an incident like this caused you to like be, you know, like one step like behind in the playoffs, or not like earn you like a certain spot or whatever. Because obviously Damar Hamlin, based on like when he woke up and he would like his first question was like, hey, who won? Like, that's a real thing. They're probably like worried about that, but I'm sure his other teammates are more concerned about him than where they're going to be in the playoffs. Like, that's just how that works out. And the fans taking so much effort and like wanting to be super involved in all this is just it's a really shitty thing for them to do. They're not showing their concern for the player. They're showing more concern as to like where their team is going to be and like what that means for them getting some trophy at the end of the year. And I'm definitely not cool with that. I hate that. Like, honestly, I think the game should end in a tie or a do not finish. And then it just carries on like it would normally would. If the players and the coaches so decide that they would rather play out this game to get to get like their proper seating or like whatever would happen, then absolutely let them make that decision. But like, I don't think the fans should be the ones like griping and get that decision. You know, if Josh Allen and Joe Burrow, the quarterbacks for these teams, decide that they want to play it out, let them talk to the NFL and make that decision. If not, just end it in a do not finish or in a tie. It really does not matter at the end of the day. What matters is making sure that Damar Hamlin is alive and well, and hopefully, should he decide that he wants to return to the NFL, because at the end of the day, he is an athlete. He's a human first, but then next, he is an athlete. This is his job. This is probably his passion if he's been doing this for so long. If he decides that he wants to return, I hope he is able to make a full recovery and get back to doing what he loves. And honestly, like, even not being a Bills fan or anything, I think it would be amazing if they ended up winning the Super Bowl this year, because that would just be like an incredible story. And but like, who knows? At the end of the day, the important thing is that he makes his recovery, and then he can decide to do what he wants going forward. He's a 24-year-old kid. He's only like a few years younger than I am. I can't imagine like being in the situation that he's in, especially suffering a heart attack at that age. So yeah, at the end of the day, I hope he makes a full recovery. One good thing that did come out of this is that he was running a toy drive in his hometown, and the toy drive initially only had a goal of about $2,500. Last time I checked, it was over almost about like $5 million. So to go from $2,500 as your goal and making $5 million, it really just kind of shows the kind of outpouring of like love that these fans have had for him. And again, at the end of the day, I can't say this enough, I hope he makes a full recovery and that he's able to get back out to doing what he loves, or he's able to retire peacefully with the peace of mind that he was able to like fight through this and make it out alive. And ultimately, at the end, that's what's important here, and that's what we should really be focusing on. But yeah, that being said, I didn't really have anything more that I wanted to talk about. I was able to go for about like 47 minutes. At the end of the day, I really think people should just be better. Like, you make more like conscious decisions and like think about like the situation around you before like going for it. That being said, for Logan Paul and the fans of the NFL, because again, it's a really shitty thing to do while somebody is like fighting for their life, and being like, oh well, yeah, I care about his safety, but, and then just saying some stupid shit about like worrying about like how this affects the team, like in their position in the playoffs. They're both going to make the playoffs. At the end of the day, who cares? They're going to make the playoffs. If the NFL decides they want to do something where it's like, hey, we're going to take instead of when you two play in the playoffs, like the first and in this case, it would probably be the Kansas City Chiefs and the Bills be like, we're not going to give like either of y'all like a home field advantage. We'll have it at like a different game for like a stadium that's like in between y'all. That's a compromise. You know, they can make that. It's only time will tell how they decide to proceed with that. But ultimately, tie or DNF should be what they decide to go for. And the fans, I mean, just need to suck it up. Let this kid recover, and you know the people at like the top will, you know, hopefully make it a smart decision on how to move forward with that. And then ultimately, like Logan Paul, like you are somebody who has a following. People, you know, maybe not as much as before this all happened, but you do have people that look up to you, people that trust you, and people that want you to succeed. And you need to do the bare minimum and communicate with those people and not leave them high and dry and just scam them out of all their money. Because at the end of the day, even if you can say that this isn't a scam all you want, and I know he's not going to be watching this in any capacity, but it bothers me so much that people at the top do this. But you have so many people under you that look up to you and that trust you, and you do not have the right to scam them out of that money. I am sorry, you do not. It is not right, and it is not okay. And if you do end up like suing CoffeeZilla, I hope he gets you for everything that he is able to squeeze out of you, because ultimately what you did was wrong, and you know it's wrong. And so, yeah, all I really have to say is, you know, I hope that we as a human race can do better. You know, whether you're at the top, whether you're, you know, in the same level as I am, just have more humanity and think about others in a more thoughtful way. But that's going to be it for me for the day. I appreciate all y'all who were decided to watch. I'm really excited to see where I'm able to go with this and how much I'm able to do with it. I do plan on doing this live on my Twitch channel every Thursday. It seems like 5 o'clock is generally the time that I want to go for it. About 45 minutes to an hour, depending on how much I have to talk about and how much I feel like talking. Or, you know, if I have guests on there and I'm able to like have a good like back and forth conversation, which I do plan on having some guests soon. I have a few that are lined up that I think are going to be really fun to talk to. And once I am able to get more information on that, I will be posting on my Twitter as well. So I'll be posting this live on my Twitch channel. I will be you know, putting out announcements and stuff on Twitter, and then I think I'm going to try and upload these every Saturday on YouTube. So if you're watching this on YouTube, hopefully I'll see you next Thursday when I do this live. And yeah, that's really all I have to say. Thank you so much for tuning in. Have a good night.